My stepdad made a deal with my wife to take over my business, thinking I'd never find out. I took legal action, and now they're both out. I'm 39 and the proud owner of a company that I built from the ground up. Every detail of it, every inch of its foundation, represents years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and every ounce of my being poured into making it what it is today. It isn't just a business. It's a testament to the sheer determination and unrelenting push of a man who refused to back down. My wife and I had been married for 6 years, a time marked by the usual ups and downs of married life. But while I wouldn't call it perfect, I truly believed we had a silent understanding, a pact forged from the shared knowledge of how demanding life could be. I assumed we had each other's backs. Then there was my stepdad, a man who had always been a polarizing presence in my life. He was the sort who never really put in the work, but was always ready to benefit from the accomplishments of others. A man whose intentions I never truly trusted, but kept close enough not to upset the fragile balance my mother clung to. She always defended him, claiming he meant well, despite my better judgment, screaming otherwise. The catalyst came when I noticed a few irregularities in my company's finances. It started small, almost easy to dismiss as simple accounting mistakes. I shrugged it off at first, chalking it up to human error. But the day I stumbled across a transfer I couldn't explain, alarm bells started ringing. It wasn't just the amount that rattled me, it was the way it was moved, subtle, like someone was trying to hide their trail. I hired an outside forensic accountant, someone who specialized in untangling messes others tried to bury. At first I thought it might take a few days, a week at most, but those days stretched into weeks. Every passing moment made my mind race with questions, suspicions digging their claws into me as I analyzed every possible scenario. I started to wonder who would betray me like this, who would dare put their hand into the lifeblood of my company. Then the bombshell dropped. It wasn't an error, a misunderstanding, or a misfiled transaction. The forensic accountant sat across from me in my office, eyes hard, voice level as he delivered the findings. The transfers weren't just small mistakes. They were deliberate, calculated embezzlement. Someone had siphoned money from my company in a way that was so subtle, so incremental, that it would have slipped under the radar if I hadn't caught it when I did. The worst part, the transfers were tied to a joint account under my wife's name and my stepdad's. The room spun when I heard that. I felt a cold wave surge from my gut to my chest, the kind that roots itself into your bones. It was them. Two people who should have had my back, the closest to me in so many ways, conspiring behind it all. A normal person would probably crumble, let the betrayal dig into them, immobilize them. But after years of building my business, dealing with obstacles and setbacks that would make most men quit, I wasn't just going to sit back and let emotions be my undoing. I needed to act. The first person I called was my lawyer. He was the same man who had seen me through rough contracts and boardroom fights that were legendary in their own right. He was stunned, of course, but we both knew there was no room for doubt. He said I had grounds to press charges for embezzlement without question, but he warned me that these cases could stretch on for years, complicating any divorce proceedings that were sure to follow. I didn't care. I'd already made up my mind. Before filing anything, my lawyer advised taking immediate action to protect my assets. I'd need an emergency court order to prevent my wife and stepdad from accessing any part of my business finances. Getting a judge to approve such an order required convincing evidence of immediate financial danger. While waiting on that, I locked down everything I could internally, changed passwords, restructured access, informed my executive team of new protocols without letting too much slip. I even beefed up surveillance on my personal accounts. My next step was deciding how to approach my wife. I waited for the final forensic report before confronting her, knowing that I needed solid proof in hand. When it arrived, the numbers didn't lie, neither did the transaction records showing how deliberate their actions were. I stood in the living room, the familiar space that had seen holidays, fights, reconciliations. But that night it was different. There was a coldness in the air. "I know," I said, my voice steely as she walked in, setting her purse down. "Know what?" she asked, casual, like we were talking about dinner plans, about the money, about you and my stepdad. Her face dropped, the color draining, as if she'd just been told someone had died. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. How did you?" she started, voice cracking. "Does it matter?" I snapped, the restraint I'd managed so far fraying at the edges. "How long have you been stealing from me? How long have you looked me in the eye, played the loving wife, while you were robbing me blind?" Tears sprang to her eyes, but they didn't move me. Not that night. She fell into a chair, hands trembling. "He convinced me you were keeping things from me, that you were selfish, that I deserved more for all I put up with." "Put up with?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You're talking about the nights I stayed up working, the weekends I spent building something that would secure our future? That's what you felt entitled to. And what about him? What the hell did he think he was going to get out of this?" She sobbed, eyes puffy, but I didn't soften. I told her to pack her things and leave. I couldn't stand the sight of her. She didn't fight it, and maybe that was the only honest thing she'd done in a long time. The divorce process was grueling, just as my lawyer had warned. Her lawyer tried to paint her as manipulated, a victim caught up in someone else's scheme. She even cried in court, claiming she didn't know what she was doing, that my stepdad had controlled her actions. But the forensic evidence was unflinching, and so was I. We presented everything, wire transfers, records, proof of her hand in it. Her defense unraveled like a threadbare sweater. Without a prenup, she tried to claim a piece of my company. Her lawyer pushed the narrative that she had supported me, making it a marital asset she was entitled to. But my team anticipated this. We focused on proving that Herb's support was a thin veil for her true intentions. The court didn't buy her story, and after months of back and forth, I managed to retain control of my business. She received a settlement, but it was far less than she'd gambled for. The company, my life's work, was still mine. As for my stepdad, I wasn't done. I filed a civil lawsuit for tortious interference, laying out how he had systematically tried to tear apart what I'd built. Embezzlement charges came next. The legal battle against him was no easier, requiring a meticulous paper trail and expert testimonies. He denied everything naturally. He tried to countersue, claiming defamation, but that was a joke. The evidence we had was ironclad. His countersuit was dismissed almost as soon as it hit the docket. The courtroom was a battlefield. His lawyer tried to argue that family disagreements shouldn't be criminal, that he was only trying to protect my wife's interest. But we exposed the greed, the manipulation, the entitlement that had driven him to this point. Witness after witness, financial report after financial report, I sat through it all, reliving the betrayal as it was laid out for everyone to see. In the end, the court sided with me. He was found guilty, and though he avoided jail through a plea deal, he was slapped with probation, hefty fines, and ordered to pay restitution. It wasn't the justice I'd fantasized about, but it was enough to move on. My mother, torn between loyalty and shock, couldn't forgive him. She left him, finally seeing the man I'd known all along. Rebuilding after that felt like trying to piece together shattered glass. I implemented new financial safeguards, brought in advisors I could trust implicitly, and set new boundaries, professionally and personally. My life wasn't just patched up, it was fortified against future betrayals. Months later, I stood in my office, watching the sun cast a warm glow across the city skyline. I had made it through the storm, scarred but not broken. I'd brought on a friend as a partner, someone who believed in me and the company. Together we drove it forward, stronger than before. My team was a tight-knit circle now, filled with people who stood by me, not because they could gain from it, but because they respected the vision and the work that defined it. A new chapter began in my personal life, too. I met someone who knew my story, but respected that I needed time and space. She understood the value of trust, something I now guarded fiercely. If there's one lesson I'd pass on, it's this: trust, but verify. People you think you know may surprise you, and not in the ways you hope. Protect what you build. No one will ever care for it the way you do. Betrayal might scar you, but it won't define you unless you let it. What I learned was that resilience is more than just surviving. It's about rebuilding with the knowledge of what can go wrong and ensuring you're never caught off guard again. In the end, I rebuilt my company and my life on my own terms. I surrounded myself with those who proved their loyalty and cut ties with those who showed their true colors. My relationship with my mother became one of quiet acceptance, tinged with the sadness of what could never be the same. I learned to value the people who brought honesty and positivity into my world, and I moved forward with caution but also hope. Standing in that new chapter, with the echoes of betrayal fading behind me, I understood that the success I'd worked for was truly mine, earned and protected. No one would ever take that away again. I was stronger, more aware, and ready for whatever came next.